This is a lesson on analyzing literature, a quick guide to close reading and literary analysis. Hi, my name is Chad, and in this lesson I will teach you the basics of close reading and literary analysis by performing a close reading and analysis of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. This is part 2 in a two-part series on analyzing literature through close reading. This video has been recorded as a standalone lesson. However, feel free to check the video description for more information on my first video in this series. Literary analysis can manifest itself in various modes of reading, including formalist, structuralist, post-structuralist, Marxist, feminist, psychoanalytic, post-colonialist, and new historicist approaches. However, at its core, literary analysis has been traditionally characterized by close reading of primary texts, with an attention to the formal features of the text. These formal features are often arranged into the following categories: character, plot, theme, setting, point of view, figures, and imagery. Analysts must observe and identify these kinds of formal features to describe the form and function of how literature works. I am going to briefly unpack these formal features reproduced from Part 1 in this series. If you have already seen Part 1, feel free to skip forward to the Practicing Literary Analysis section where I will perform a literary analysis of the Silmarillion, and feel free to pause the video to further examine each category as we quickly skim through them. One category of formal features is that of character, the creation and representation of persons and entities. So when performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of character in the text: who the antagonist, protagonist, and anti-hero are, whether or not the characterization is dynamic, flat, round, static, stock, or symbolic. Plot, a series of events or happenings that organize a story. When performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of plot in the text: what the conflict, climax, and denouement are, whether or not the plot is external or internal, complicated or simple, implausible or plausible, as well as whether or not the plot involves any foreshadowing. Theme, a major message or idea woven throughout the story. So when performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of theme in the text: what the controlling idea, related ideas, and separate issues are. Setting, atmosphere, historical period, physical setting, and mood of the story. So when performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of setting in the text: what the place, time, flashbacks, and projections are, whether or not the setting is ahistorical, historical, chronological, backward, forward, circular, or fragmented, as well as whether or not the setting starts in medias res. Point of view, perspective of the controlling narrative voice. So when performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of point of view in the text: whether the point of view is first person or third person, whether the narrator is omniscient or limited omniscient, objective or subjective, reliable or unreliable. Figures, various tropes and similes used to create perspectives, vividness, and emphasis. So when performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of figures in the text: whether or not they are instances of allegory, analogy, irony, sarcasm, satire, metaphor, metonymy, personification, simile, symbolism, or synecdoche, as well as whether or not the symbols are intangible or tangible. Imagery, specific sensory details describing characters, situations, things, ideas, or events. So when performing a literary analysis of a text, readers should observe the following aspects of imagery in the text: whether the sensory appeals target hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, or are in some way extrasensory. Now you may still be wondering how to turn these observations into an analysis. Well, there are 4 general steps to performing a literary analysis, and the first step we have already been discussing for the last several minutes. That is, first, observe the formal features of the text. Look at this step as an act of I spy, sleuthing for the formal features of character, plot, theme, setting, point of view, figures, and imagery. Make markings or notes in the text or in your document that record your general observations. List them out. Second, observe what surprises or underwhelms you. This step, too, is an act of sleuthing. Notice the absence of formal features and consider why these things may have been omitted. Compile a list of noteworthy things to talk about, reducing the scope of your list from all the formal features down to a handful of groupings that seem particularly interesting to you. Remember, immerse yourself in the book and enjoy reading it closely. This need not be drudgery. Enjoy the process. Third, formulate a theory or explanation as to why the text appears in this way and not another. Remember that your theory has to work with the evidence you have in the text, so examine the text for clues. Ask yourself the question, why did the author choose this word or style or form and not some other? Fourth, and closely connected to the third step, bear out your theory or explanation with an explication or interpretation of the text. Break it down, citing examples from the text, including key sentences, phrases, words, and punctuation marks. Ask yourself the question, how does the author make the reader believe or feel or act in response to the text? Using these 4 general steps, you will be able to conquer the craft of literary analysis. Now, if your project requires you to answer a research question already provided for you, such as, why does the author use symbolic characters in this book? Or, how does the author emphasize justice in this story? Then adapt these 4 steps by first spying out the formal features related to the question, second, noticing what strikes you about these related features in connection with your given topic, third, formulating how these related features come together to form a theory or explanation in answer to the question, and fourth, proving your interpretive theory with evidence from and interaction with the text. To illustrate how to perform a literary analysis of a text, let's look at J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion as a case study. The Silmarillion is a compilation of the early lore and backstory of Middle-earth, beginning with its creation story, narrating the awakening of men and elves and dwarves, and chronicling the early struggles of these 3 peoples against the encroachment of the evil fomented by Melkor and his evil hosts. The Silmarillion sets the historical stage and thematic backdrop for Tolkien's 2 most popular works, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. We will be using the 2nd edition edited by Christopher Tolkien, published by Houghton Mifflin in 2001, as pictured on your screen. Remember our 4 general steps as we proceed. First, observe the formal features of the text. Second, observe what surprises or underwhelms you. Third, formulate a theory or explanation as to why the text appears in this way and not another. Fourth, bear out your theory or explanation with an explication or interpretation of the text. Let us begin. The following excerpts have been taken from the opening paragraphs of the Silmarillion. There was Eru, the One, who in Arda is called Iluvatar, and he made first the Ainur, the Holy Ones, that were the offspring of his thought. And they were with him before aught else was made, and he spoke to them, propounding to them themes of music, and they sang before him, and he was glad. But for a long while they sang only each alone, or but few together, while the rest hearkened. For each comprehended only that part of the mind of Iluvatar from which he came, and in the understanding of their brethren they grew but slowly. Yet ever as they listened they came to deeper understanding, and increased in unison and harmony. And it came to pass that Iluvatar called together all the Ainur, and declared to them a mighty theme, unfolding to them things greater and more wonderful than he had yet revealed, and the glory of its beginning and the splendor of its end amazed the Ainur, so that they bowed before Iluvatar and were silent. Then Iluvatar said to them, Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will, now that ye make in harmony together a great music, and since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices, if he will. But I will sit and hearken, and be glad that through you great beauty has been wakened into song. Then the voices of the Ainur, like unto harps and lutes and pipes and trumpets and viols and organs, and like unto countless choirs singing, began to fashion the theme of Iluvatar to a great music, and a sound arose of endless interchanging melodies, woven in harmony, that passed beyond hearing into the depths and into the heights, and the places of the dwelling of Iluvatar were filled to overflowing, and the music and the echo of the music went out into the void, and it was not void. Never since have the Ainur made any music like to this, though it has been said that a greater still shall be made before Iluvatar by the choirs of the Ainur, and the children of Iluvatar after the end of days. then the themes of Iluvatar shall be played aright, and take being in the moment of their utterance, for all shall then understand fully his intent in their part, and Iluvatar shall give to their thoughts the secret fire, being well pleased. But now Iluvatar sat and hearkened, and for a great while it seemed good to him, for in the music there were no flaws. But as the theme progressed, it came into the heart of Melkor to interweave matters of his own imagining that were not in accord with the theme of Iluvatar, for he sought therein to increase the power and glory of the part assigned to himself. To Melkor among the Ainur had been given the greatest gifts of power and knowledge, and he had a share in all the gifts of his brethren. He had gone often alone into the void places, seeking the imperishable flame, for desire grew hot within him to bring into being things of his own, and it seemed to him that Iluvatar took no thought for the void, and he was impatient of its emptiness. Yet he found not the fire, for it was with Iluvatar. But being alone, he had begun to conceive thoughts of his own, unlike those of his brethren. Now that we have read the primary text, let's first observe the formal features of the text. As you can see, I have color-coded the formal features. In terms of character, Eru Iluvatar and the Ainur are the primary characters in green. These characters both seem to be dynamic and active, with Eru Iluvatar functioning as a symbolic protagonist, representing the creator-god archetype, and the Ainur functioning as secondary supporting characters. In terms of plot, what we have so far is the exposition or setup for the complication and conflict on the next slide. Relatively simple and not complex so far. In terms of theme, the controlling ideas seem to be creation and harmony, with the sub-themes of glory and power and community. In terms of setting, relatively little is divulged about the place or chronology. We know that the central point of reference seems to be Eru Iluvatar seated in the middle of the Ainur. He seems to be the focal point of the setting. In terms of point of view, the scene is unfolded by an unidentified narrator who is using the third-person omniscient objective perspective, which can be seen through the use of pronouns like he and they and them, as well as through the insights the narrator provides into the thoughts and inner workings of each character, and through the absence of personal commentary. In terms of figures, we see things like the metaphor of offspring in the third line and the personification of beauty in the last line, as well as the oft-used types of creator and angelic host in this creation myth. In terms of imagery, the sensory descriptions seem to be somewhat absent, except for the occasional reference to auditory sensations like music and silence and song. If we replicate this same process of observing the formal features of the text, we see, in terms of character, Eru Iluvatar certainly stands out as the protagonist contrasted now by Melkor, who is a stark antagonist as a symbolic Satan-like character. The Ainur remain as the secondary characters. In terms of plot, we see complications and the beginnings of a complex plotline. We have the first conflict with the discordant Melkor, seeking to voice his own conceited and impatient anti-music. In terms of theme, the controlling ideas still seem to be creation and harmony, now contrasted by disharmony, with the sub-themes of glory and power and community contrasted with infamy, corruption, and isolation. In terms of setting, there's a little more texture with references to depths and heights and Iluvatar's dwelling, which seems to be the place of preeminence. Iluvatar seated still seems to be the focalizing point. There's a little foreshadowing which references the children of Iluvatar after the end of days. In terms of point of view, the scene is still unfolded by an unidentified narrator who is using the third-person omniscient objective perspective. In terms of figures, we see things like the analogy by simile of harps and lutes, and pipes and trumpets, and viols and organs and choirs singing. And we see more poetic metaphor, like that of Melkor's hot desire. In terms of imagery, the sensory descriptions seem to be intensified somewhat with the musical imagery at the beginning and the repetition of words like echo and utterance, and some extrasensory sensations or feelings that make the impatience and ire of Melkor be felt. Now that we have made observations of formal features, let's perform step 2 and list some surprising or underwhelming things we observed. The whole opening scene in the Silmarillion seems to be about who, not what. why, not how. Tolkien strikingly omits reference to place and even to time and focuses rather on the creator. Eru Ilúvatar is center stage, not his created realm. Not even his original composition of world-creating music seems to be the central focus. Tolkien mentions it only ever in relation to the supreme creator, Ilúvatar. The types used by Tolkien seem distantly and sometimes eminently familiar to other related creation myths. Biblical themes and parallels are unmistakable. Yet, at the same time, there are enough differences and uses of unfamiliar creative vehicles like that of a great music that seem to keep the tale fresh and engaging. Binaries of harmony and disharmony, community and isolation, fullness or grandeur and emptiness and the void riddle the text, setting up a very stark contrast. This list is just a start. These observations will become the substance of our interpretive theory. Now that we have observed the features that have surprised or underwhelmed us, let's perform step 3 and formulate a theory or explanation as to why the text appears in this way and not another. The research question I have posed for myself is, how does Tolkien engage the Judeo-Christian creation account in his own Middle-earth creation story? Since I was not already supplied with a research question, I decided to pursue a vein of analysis and research that particularly interested me. I could have chosen dozens of other questions like, how does Tolkien represent good and evil? Or how does Tolkien use binaries to develop his story? Or how is Melkor like a rival or substitute creator god? So in answer to the research question I chose, one possible theory, in brief, could be, Tolkien seeks to defamiliarize certain aspects of the biblical creation myth by re-enchanting the tale in fresh metaphors and with a new perspective. He does this to return the focus of interpretation on the creator god, whose work can be more accurately perceived as an act of artistry rather than that of science. This brief theory is just for starters. This theory could be further refined and developed if we were going to write a full-scale analysis of the text, but this will work as an example. Now let's move on to step 4, and let's bear out our theory or explanation with an explication or interpretation of the text. So some possible lines of evidence we could use in brief might be, Tolkien recalls clear biblical parallels with his inclusion of details like the creator-angelic host pairing, the spirit-like flame imperishable, the awakening of beauty and a perfect creation in an empty void, the opposition of the satanic figure Melkor. Tolkien immerses the biblical tale under the metaphorical conceit of a grand symphony and creates a new mythology with different character names. The opening scene seems to be about who, not what, why, not how. Tolkien strikingly omits reference to place and even to time and focuses rather on the creator. Eru Ilúvatar is center stage, not his created realm or his original composition of world-creating music. Tolkien omits scientific explanations and repackages the tale in artistic musical descriptions. The work we have done here is just a snapshot of the kind of analysis work that you will do when performing a formalist analysis of a text. Our theory could easily be transformed into a thesis, and our evidence could make the beginnings of some fine body paragraphs, which we could substantiate with further evidence and interpretation. The work of performing a literary analysis need not be daunting. It can be fun and engaging, and is easily reproducible once you have mastered the craft. I hope you have found this lesson helpful as you seek to perform your own literary analysis. For more information, check your writing manuals, visit local writing centers, or consult online writing helps. Or check out more videos at our YouTube channel. And visit Southeastern's Writing Center website where you will find dozens of helpful links and handouts offering writing assistance for a variety of situations and audiences. Thank you.